Hello, dear students. The only thing which I like is that all my students should always smile. And for that, we have introduced a very short overview of the entire chapter. But that's not all. We will give you study notes, comprehensive, detailed analysis of the chapters as per the ICSE curriculum. Yes, there would be mock test. We will cover everything. And yes, when you fall in love, the learning becomes magical. We definitely know how to create the magic and just get ready for the magic. I love you all. Bajrang Kumar Garg, founder, Gen Z EdTech. Keep smiling.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really crucial 15-year period in India's history. It's a time when these scattered sparks of protest against British rule were fanned into the roaring fire of a nationwide revolution. So, let's get into how it all happened.
So how does that happen? How does a scattered protest turn into a full-blown nationwide revolution? Well, for India, you have to go back to 1905. It all starts with a single, deeply unpopular decision by the British that basically lit a fuse across the subcontinent.
And that spark? It was the partition of Bengal. Now, the British claimed it was all for, administrative efficiency. But a lot of Indians saw right through that. They saw it as a deliberate attempt to divide them. But here's the thing, it did the exact opposite.
The response was immediate. The Swadeshi movement just exploded onto the scene. And you have to understand, this was a huge shift. This wasn't just the usual political elites anymore. For the very first time, you had thousands of ordinary people, including a whole lot of women, pouring into the streets demanding a say in their country's future.
And the strategy behind it was, honestly, brilliant. So simple, but so powerful. First, boycott British goods. Hit them where it hurts, right? In the wallet. Then, promote Swadeshi, which just means Indian-made products. This was about building self-reliance and national pride. And the end goal for all of this, the big prize, Swaraj, or self-government, which the Congress made its official goal in 1906.
But you know how it is. This newfound unity, it was pretty fragile. As the movement got bigger, some serious cracks started to show within the Indian National Congress itself, and you can bet the British were watching, ready to take advantage of it. And it all came to a head in 1907, when the Congress literally split right down the middle. You had the moderates, who were still saying, let's use petitions, let's try to persuade them, but then you had the extremists, led by people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who were arguing for much more forceful methods. At a moment when they needed to be united, they were completely fractured.
The British, of course, jumped all over this internal conflict. It was their classic playbook, divide and rule. They actively encouraged political divisions along religious lines, even supporting the creation of the All India Muslim League in 1906. The idea was to create separate political platforms and, weaken the entire nationalist cause.
And they didn't just encourage it, they cemented it into law. In 1909, the Morley Minto reforms introduced something called separate electorates. Now, what does that mean? It meant that only Muslim voters could elect Muslim candidates. It literally carved up the electorate into religious blocks. This was a total game changer, and a huge blow to the idea of a unified national movement.
So right as all this internal struggle is reshaping the movement, the entire world gets thrown into absolute chaos. In 1914, the First World War breaks out, and India, being part of the British Empire, is automatically dragged into a massive conflict that really wasn't its own.
The burden on India was just immense. Indian soldiers were sent to the front lines, and the country's resources were drained to fund the British war effort. And how did they pay for it all? By jacking up taxes in India, of course. This led to a huge spike in the price of everyday goods, causing widespread economic panic among the people.
Okay, so you have this climate of economic hardship and political frustration just bubbling up everywhere. And right into the middle of all of this, a new kind of leader arrives back in India in 1915. He'd spent years in South Africa developing a totally unique philosophy of resistance, and his return was about to change everything.
Of course, we're talking about Mahatma Gandhi, and his revolutionary idea was Satyagraha. Now, this wasn't passive resistance. It was an active but non-violent struggle. It was all based on the principles of truth and moral courage. It was a brand new weapon for a new kind of war.
Gandhi didn't just show up and try to launch some grand national campaign. No, he was way smarter than that. He tested and proved Satyagraha in smaller, local fights first. In Champaran, he stood up for oppressed indigo farmers. In Ahmedabad, he supported striking mill workers. In Kedah, he fought for peasants hit hard by crop failure. and each victory proved that nonviolent resistance could get real, tangible results for ordinary people.
As you can imagine, Gandhi's success and this growing tide of nationalism started to make the British really, really nervous. The response wasn't dialogue or reform. Nope, it was to tighten their grip with an iron fist, and that led to a moment of just unimaginable brutality.
In 1919, the government passed the infamous Rowlatt Act. This thing basically threw civil liberties out the window. It gave the police these sweeping powers to arrest people without a warrant and lock them up without a trial. It was a terrible law, and pretty much every single person in India was against it.
In protest, Gandhi called for a nationwide strike, a hartal, on April 6th. The response was overwhelming, but things were especially tense in the province of Punjab. On April 10th, 2 popular local leaders were arrested, which just fueled the fire. 3 days later, on April 13th, a large crowd gathered in a public garden in Amritsar to peacefully protest what had happened. That garden was Jallianwala Bagh. It was enclosed by high walls, with only a few narrow ways to get out. British troops, under the command of General Dyer, blocked the main exit. And then, without any warning, they opened fire on the unarmed crowd of men, women, and children. The shooting went on for 10 solid minutes until they ran out of ammunition. It was nothing short of a cold-blooded massacre.
The Jallianwala Bagh massacre was the final breaking point. It completely destroyed any lingering faith anyone might have in British justice. After this, the demand wasn't for more rights or a better deal within the empire anymore. The goal was now crystal clear, absolute and non-negotiable, complete and total independence. The era of mass struggle had truly and tragically begun.